It takes about 7 days. Hey, I'm Ron from Dungeon Noob, and what I'm about to tell you is really going to change the way that you see one of D&D's most iconic monsters. So let's get started. The tadpole gets placed against a humanoid skull. It burrows in, and over the next week or so, it devours the host's brain from the inside. And then, in the most genuinely grotesque way possible, it attaches to the brainstem and starts rewiring the body. Not just the brain, but the entire body. The face changes, the skull reshapes, and 4 tentacles emerge where the mouth used to be. And by day 7, the transformation is complete, and the monster we have now is called a mind flayer. And the person, that humanoid that did the transformation, is gone, completely gone. And I want you to remember that because I'm going to come back to it later in the video. That's the story D&D has been telling for over 50 years. And honestly, most of it is true. Mind flayers are psychic apex predators whose signature move, so to speak, is feeding on your brain and then turning you into one of them. And they serve a hive mind ruled by something called an elder brain. And we'll get into what that actually means in just a second. But here's one thing the source books mention quietly. In a paragraph most players skim right past. The illithid, which is a formal fancy name for the mind flayer, well, they've been hunting and executing their own kind for thousands of years over one specific thing. Something they fear so deeply that they gave it a name. And the name is where this video ends up. Now, the Mind Flayer is one of D&D's most popular monsters by far. It's an S-tier monster, so to speak. And it's been that way since the beginning. And it's actually gotten more popular thanks to Stranger Things, even though the Mind Flayer in D&D and the Mind Flayer in Stranger Things are completely different for lots of reasons. I'm actually creating a whole new video on that, which I'll get to later on. But anyway, the reason why this monster works so well is that it really targets multiple fear centers in your brain. I mean, think about it. There's a loss of autonomy, a loss of identity, and the things that make you you, your brain, your mind. It's the very specific thing being targeted. Now, really think about that. That's genuinely horrifying. And what makes this even worse is that the Mind Flayer doesn't operate alone. Mind Flayers live inside a colony controlled by a single entity called the Elder Brain. Volo's Guide to Monsters says that the Elder Brain is the controller, the ruler, and every Mind Flayer in the colony is an extension of its will. Now think of this colony as a neural network operating as a single organism, not a group of individuals working together making their own choices, because the only entity in that entire network with any real autonomy or agency is the Elder Brain. And here's what makes this genuinely disturbing. The Mind Flayer used to be a person, someone with their own thoughts, their own interests, their own feelings, their own free will. But as a Mind Flayer, none of that exists anymore. The Elder Brain's will determines everything they do. Their loyalty is total, their obedience absolute. They hunt, they feed, they serve, and the psychic network connecting them all is always on and always present. There's no escape. And the Elder Brain sits at the center of all of this. It's immobile and it floats in a brine pool. And it holds every memory from every Mind Flayer it has ever absorbed. Now, what I mean by that is when a Mind Flayer dies, the colony retrieves the physical brain and feeds it to the brine pool for the Elder Brain. Because according to everything every Mind Flayer has ever been taught, that's the moment their consciousness joins a sacred afterlife. It's an afterlife shared with every illithid that came before them. Now, remember that for later because it really matters. All right, before we move on, one quick thing. I built a quiz that figures out what D&D class you actually are in real life. The one that matches how you think and how you make decisions. It's a quick, fun quiz, I promise, and when you're done, I'll send the full personality breakdown straight into your inbox. It's a full assessment. Link is in the description, so let's continue with the video. And here's the wild part. When a Mind Flayer dies and the Mind Flayer's brain gets absorbed, their personality is completely destroyed. Let that sink in because that means there is no afterlife. The Elder Brain keeps their knowledge and memories, but the humanoid, the Mind Flayer, the actual consciousness is gone. It's dead. There is no afterlife. The Elder Brain built the afterlife in order to exact control. Now think about how twisted this is. the original person, gets erased and deleted and becomes a mind flayer. Then the mind flayer lives its entire life with no free will, no agency, and no freedom, serving a being that only sees it as a tool. And when the mind flayer dies, it believes it's going somewhere sacred, but it just gets destroyed again. The elder brain lies about the entire process. Now here's where everything changes, and which surprised me. Based on everything I've told you so far, it seems like there's no way out for the mind flayer, right? The psychic network is always on. The elder brain's control is total. But Volo's guide says something that most D&D players either have never read or never thought about or skipped it. When a mind flayer breaks free from its colony, which is possible, and that psychic connection severs, something remarkable happens. It starts to regain its individuality. Its autonomy comes back. It actually develops respect for other species. It can become capable of cooperation and real alliances. A mind flayer can become good. So Volo's guide, the source book I'm mentioning, actually says a renegade mind flayer might become a trusted advisor or even a powerful ally. Imagine that. The hunting, the feeding, the complete disregard for every other living thing, the pure evilness, that's not who mind flayers actually are. That's the elder brain. Because you remove that connection from the elder brain and something completely different emerges. And the source books actually give us specific named mind flayers who prove that when the elder brain's control is gone, everything changes. The first example is Sangalor of the Secrets. He's documented in the Skullport sourcebook and became a cleric of Ogma, the human god of knowledge. You see, he struck a deal with the lords of Waterdeep, trading intelligence on illithid activity for permission to operate openly on the surface. Yeah, he actually became allies with Waterdeep. And then there's Grazalax from Out of the Abyss. He was exiled from his colony for refusing a thrall-gathering raid. His elder brain removed one of his tentacles as punishment before just casting him out. He went on to co-found an organization of Underdark creatures dedicated to solving problems through cooperation and diplomacy. Mind flayers don't do that. And finally, and many of you in my audience love Baldur's Gate 3, so you know this one, Omelum. He used his innate arcane magic to resist the elder brain and defect entirely. He now lives among the Myconids in the Underdark and actively tries to help people he encounters. I mean, it's amazing because once they got rid of the elder brain, every single one of them became more cooperative, more ethical, and more capable of genuine connection with other people. So the mind flayer isn't the enemy, it's the elder brain. But there's more. Now, you might be wondering, since the original person that became the mind flayer was completely destroyed during the transformation, where is all this goodness and autonomy coming from? How does a mind flayer become a priest of a human god? And how does it develop genuine empathy? Well, here's where it gets really interesting, because the illithids have been asking themselves the same question, and the answer, well, it terrifies them. Now, there's a second edition sourcebook called the Illithiad, which introduced something called Partialism. And what that means is that it's the idea that fragments of the host's memory can actually survive the transformation into a mind flayer. We're talking small things like a nervous habit or tic, a song the host used to hum, an emotional response the mind flayer can't explain and has no reason to have. Well, within mind flayer society, showing any signs of partialism means death. And here's where all of this ties together. The illithids have a prophecy called the Adversary, the belief that eventually a host's personality will survive the transformation in its entirety. Basically, a complete mind flayer with all its skills, intellect, and psionic powers, but with the original person's mind and soul completely intact. And that mind flayer will work to bring illithid civilization down from the inside. Now here's the really cool part. It's already happened. In an adventure called Dawn of the Overmind, a human named Strom Wakeman used an herbal preparation to preserve his consciousness through the transformation. He came out the other end as a complete mind flayer with all the mind flayer's powers, but it was him. His original mind and soul were completely intact. and he spent years inside illithid civilization sabotaging their plans from the inside. The person who went in to become a mind flayer never left. So remember when I told you at the very beginning of this video that the person who became a mind flayer is completely gone? Well, the illithid's own mythology says otherwise, and the Elder Brain knows it, which is why it kills any mind flayer who shows even the smallest trace of the person they used to be. So at your table, when you encounter a mind flayer, remember this: a person was destroyed to create it. A creature with no will, no agency, and no freedom, serving a being, an Elder Brain that views it as a tool. Taught a lie about its own afterlife, and conditioned to destroy any trace of the person it used to be. But here's what the source books also tell us. When that connection breaks, something remarkable happens. Not a monster, something closer to the person that went in. And according to the illithid's own mythology, that person never fully disappeared in the first place. That host, that person is still in there. The Elder Brain spent thousands of years trying to make sure you'd never feel sorry about a mind flayer. How do you feel now? And honestly, that really tells you everything you need to know about who the real monster actually is. The monster was never and is never the mind flayer. All right, thanks for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. I had fun researching it. And if you wanted to know what I rolled a 16. So comment, if you made it this far, comment number 16 in the comments below. And if you want to, take that quiz, because a lot of people have had fun with it. Over 5,000 people have already taken the quiz. So go ahead, do that, and I'll see you in the next video.